This is Shelley Craft coming to you live on a Wall Street view from the Sprott Natural Resource Symposium 2016 in Vancouver. I have with me Brent Cook, Exploration Insights. He's a speaker, newsletter writer, and in general, a raconteur. Brent, welcome back to SNN Live.
Thank you. Always glad to see you and talk with you.
It's good to see you. Let's get into it. We're at the Sprott conference. What are you discussing at this conference?
The title of my talk, which is on Thursday morning, is Game On or Con On. And what we've seen over the past 6 months is, in general, the junior resource sector has increased by over 100%. Gold price is up maybe $100. And to be honest, I would say 90% of the stocks that have risen 100% were probably more properly valued 6 months ago when they were not worth much. There's been a lot of there's a real shortage of quality deposits and quality people. So right now the demand exceeds the supply, which is interesting.
Well, it's big turnaround in the market. I mean, let's face it, doom and gloom for 4 years, and all of a sudden the sun comes out. Everybody's sitting on some cash, whatever they may have left, and they want to deploy it. So it's understandable that they're running around looking for situations.
It is, and I don't have a problem with that. In November, I brought on Joe Mazumdar with Exploration Insights, and we picked up a few stocks. The idea being, I felt that things had turned, and 5 of our companies have been acquired by majors. And what we're trying to do is roll into the more early stage exploration stage, because my feeling, I know that what is really lacking in this industry is new quality discoveries. I mean, I've said it before, but we're mining 90 million ounces a year, and we're finding 30 million a year. You can't do that forever. So new discoveries are going to be extremely valuable, extremely rare, and that's the place to be. I personally am ignoring all these marginal ounces that people are buying these days, because they're marginal. They always will be.
So let's talk about new discoveries for a minute. Where might one find some?
All right, we've purchased companies in Mexico, silver deposits, Turkey, gold, copper deposit. We're into northern BC with a company with gold and copper prospect. No discovery yet, but really good ground. Where else are we? In Argentina and Chile as well. So the same places.
I don't hear the U.S.
No, not really active in the U.S. Not that I've got a real problem with it, but the best ground has been tied up by the majors for a long time. There's lots of stuff on the outskirts. The permitting issue, and there's a sage grouse problem that's making it more and more difficult. So I'm not opposed to doing things in the U.S., but I'm very, it's not high on my list, if you will, which is too bad because I could drive there.
So what do you consider a sizable discovery early stage, where obviously they haven't done a feasibility study? Are you going out on the ground, walking it, looking at geological, reports?
Oh, that's critical. The earlier stage the project is, the more important it is to go look at it. Because I can give an example where someone in Mexico put out a trench of like 40 meters of 3 grams from surface. Great, right? You go there and look at it, well, this thing's in the bottom of a canyon with a river going by it, and there's no way in hell you could ever mine it. But if you didn't go there and see that, you'd think this was interesting. So it's critical to go look. And what we're really interested in is large enough and high quality enough, meaning economic enough, to attract a buyout from a major. I'm not really interested in a company finding and developing a small deposit. That's not my game plan. I want, big. If you're going to go in this sector, which is extremely high risky, as you know, you might as well go for the home run rather than a single.
What about grade? I mean, how do you, I know until you drill and stuff, I mean, you really don't know what you got. So how do you kind of weigh out, grade?
The first thing I do when I go to properties, you look at the rock and, okay, what's it going to cost to get the metal out of here? Is it oxidized, meaning is it easy to get out? That means your costs are low and your grade can be lower. Is it refractory, or is it in silica or hard rock? It means your costs are higher, so your grade has to be higher. So you can't say across the board, this grade works and this grade doesn't. I mean, I could show you a 30-gram deposit in Nevada in a vein that lost money, and a 8.6 grand deposit in Nevada that made lots of money. So it's the economics behind it that are important.
Now, what we hear a lot is the management groups of these companies that are doing this exploration. So, in early stage, is management as important as it is in a more developed company?
Most definitely. What's really critical in an early stage exploration company is knowing when to cut bait. And most of them aren't able to do that. They fall in love with the prospect. They've raised money for this project. They told their shareholders this is the prospect. They get the results back. They're like, this isn't very good, but we got to keep pushing it. And maybe it's over here, and maybe it's over there. And so management is really key. They have to understand what they're looking for, what it looks like, when to cut bait, and how much it's going to cost to move to the next stage. And it's you've got to raise money each stage, and there's no point raising money on something that doesn't stand a chance. So you cut bait as quick as possible and move on.
What are the majors doing these days?
Mostly sitting on their hands. They're in an interesting situation. I think, given the last few years, they've written off $50 billion in assets they bought previous to that, which were marginal assets.
That's maybe 2 or 3 companies.
Yeah. But, so they're afraid to go in and buy things. And the problem they face is that a lot of these marginal ounce resources or marginal deposits have risen 100%, and they're still not valuable, so they can't buy those. They're not really beefing up their exploration teams by and large, so they're in a bit of a quandary. And I think what's going to happen is this year, a few years down the road, they're going to call down to their exploration firm and say, I need a deposit, and nobody's going to be there. They fired them. And then they're going to go out and look for these very few discoveries that make money. That's where we're going to be.
So if you had to advise a group of explorers, what would you tell them to look for today?
I think precious metals are probably much more attractive than base metals, and that's based on my view of the global economy. And then again, it's got to be big, and it's got to be economic. Don't waste time on projects that really don't stand a chance. As soon as you see that fatal flaw, move on. If you're a good explorer, you burn through a number of projects, a number of years, until you come across the one that works. What you want to be is, when you come across that one that works, to have a nice, tight share structure so that investors can make money on it.
Talk about Exploration Insights for a minute, because a lot of our audience are investors, may be looking for more information in the exploration world. What do you tell them in your newsletter?
My letter, and now I've got Joe Mazumdar as well, so there's 2 economic geologists. He's got a PhD in mineral economics from Colorado School of Mines, so he's good. It's about what we're actually buying with our own money. No one pays us to say anything about them. That's the only money we make is from subscriptions and from profit or loss on what we buy. We put it out once a week, every weekend usually. We describe the thesis behind our investment, why we're buying it, what we expect, what we need to see, when to cut bait. We'll cut bait as soon as it starts falling apart. And that's really what it's about. And then on the website, explorationinsights.com, we've got a lot of free articles, information that runs through our history, our performance. Once you're a subscriber, everything I've written, going back to 2008, everything I've bought and sold, it's all there. So it's pretty transparent, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
So last thing I want to ask you is, give out your website one more time.
explorationinsights.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brent Cook, Exploration Insights. He's a speaker, newsletter writer, and a friend of mine. We're at the Sprott Natural Resource Symposium 2016 in Vancouver. I'm Shelley Craft. This is SNN Live, doing a Wall Street view with Brent Cook. Thanks so much for coming on. Great to have you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.